must build a vibrant and strong Liberia of which we can all be proud.
President Ellen Sirleaf has proven that women can do it.
She can stand up in a terrain so-called of men. Madam Sirleaf has made all of us brave.
We are all Liberia, Liberia is our own.
Freedom is in the air. Today, Liberians are celebrating a key moment in their history. It's been 166 years since the country gained independence. Liberia was the first modern African nation to declare its liberty from Western control. But Liberians have only really enjoyed true freedom in the last 8 years, since the election of President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf.
Thank you for your hard work.
With the government of Madam Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, we see democracy moving. We see freedom of expression. We're seeing the economy is booming gradually. So that's another value for us as an independent and sovereign state.
Liberia is a land of peace in Africa, so we don't want no more war.
A male-dominated country, plagued by civil war, a female president was unthinkable. But Ellen would go on to win the country's first democratic election and shape Liberia in an unprecedented way.
Her Excellency Ms. Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, President of the Republic of Liberia.
She is the first female head of state in Africa.
We are all Liberia, Liberia is our own.
Ellen Johnson Sirleaf was elected President of Liberia in 2005. 2 years after the country emerged shattered from a brutal civil conflict. She was a popular activist and in her late 60s.
We will vote for Liberia, and I think she stands for Liberia. That was the feeling.
We thought that Liberia had just received a declaration of independence, you know, because we saw something like, oh yes, Liberia is about to be transformed.
But in this West African country, which has traditionally been split into communities ruled by male chiefs, politics had long been thought to be no place for a woman.
We feel fear in this political arena because you feel alone, you know. You'll be called names, your siblings, your parents, your relatives, everybody is scared because they think it's not your area, what could happen to you, and somehow it's to shield you as a woman. But we are saying no, and she said, no, I don't need to be shielded.
She was very focused, and from small, she always felt that she would either be the president of this country or she would hold some high office.
Life started for young Ellen and 3 siblings in the center of Liberia's capital, Monrovia.
She was living here because they played the Goda Mansion. It was small when we used to play football. I mean, right around here. And she used to ride the bicycle, going up and down, coming back.
She was a very, very active young girl. Actually, we could say people called her a tomboy. And she could climb trees as fast as we boys could. And she even played football with us.
But it was her outspokenness that had always set her apart.
As I progressed in academia, I became very, very vocal, taking issues, whether it was, in my class or whether it was in my professional life. So I think that may have propelled me into where I am.
She spoke out for equality, a value that had been instilled in her by the dual heritage of her parents. Her father's ancestors had been in Liberia for many generations, the so-called indigenous Liberians. Her mother was raised primarily by ancestors of those former slaves who arrived in the country around 200 years ago from America. There was a long-running feud between the groups.
Well, she wanted equality, and she wanted an emergence of the Liberian people coming together as one. She spoke out against the domination of elitist families, so-called Americo-Liberians, as against the indigenous Liberian. And I mean, she took a very strong position on those issues. And so she became popular and well-known with grassroots people.
She studied economics at home before attending Harvard University in the United States of America, returning in her early 30s. At the time, prominent Americo-Liberian William Talbot was president, and he appointed the young but highly educated Ellen to the finance ministry.
When you go in, go prepared.
William Talbot's daughter, Christine Talbot Norman, also worked in the government.
I saw her dynamism. I saw at that point she didn't fail to express her interest politically. I was impressed by her because she was a woman who was ambitious.
She attracted attention with a fiery speech to the Liberian Chamber of Commerce. She claimed that the country's corporations were harming the economy by hoarding their profits or sending them overseas.
We always try to tell her, moderate your views. Because, the men in Liberia, it's very difficult for them to accept equality with women or having outspoken women, because women were at the time very shy, and they were expected to stay in their place as mothers.
Only 1 year after Ellen became finance minister, William Talbot was assassinated. 13 of his cabinet officials were publicly executed 10 days later. The coup was by indigenous military rebels led by Master Sergeant Samuel Doe. Ellen was one of only 4 ministers to survive. Still, she later spoke out against Samuel Doe's regime and was sentenced to 10 years in prison. International calls for her release followed, and her term was cut to just less than a year. She left prison defiant and proud.
I went to the prison to get her out, and it was just fantastic, the crowds, the surging crowds. And she gave this famous salute with the fists in the air, and the crowd went wild. And we had to just bodily take her and put her in the back of a truck so that she could get away, because, the crowd was surging. And, she liked that. Let's face it, she liked that. And she was inspired by that.
I've been through it all. I've been through the good days and the bad days. And I think that has hardened me to be able to stay focused, to be able to pursue what I want to pursue and not be diverted, by those who would do things differently or try to move me away from my course.
Less than 5 years after she came out of jail, Ellen was threatened again by Samuel Doe's officials and fled to the USA.
When there was no opportunity, she didn't go and sit down and wait for a term. She went and worked hard at the World Bank. She worked hard with IMF. She worked with the UN. She has aspiration, she has determination, loyalty, and of course diligence is paramount.
Meanwhile, there was a dramatic change at home in Liberia. Former government official and trained guerrilla fighter Charles Taylor started a civil war to overthrow Samuel Doe. Liberia was battered by conflict for more than a decade.
Doe was overthrown bloodily, terribly, in 1990. And that civil war raged and destroyed the entire country. 13 years of war. Not 1 inch of Liberia was left untouched. But the loss of lives, the loss of pride, the loss of just human aspiration. Liberians had to be degraded to eating grass for days, for months. Children were without parents. The war brought education to a halt. Youth were used as child soldiers. Many kids never saw their parents again.
In 1994, female activists started to emerge for the first time in such great numbers. The mounting killings drove them to campaign.
We met with warlords, one-on-one, tried to reason with them to put down the guns, and let us try to live in peace.
Female artists performed on the front lines, where they convinced soldiers to put down their weapons.
We disarmed with music, and they gave us the guns, and we turned the guns over to ECOMOG. ECOMOG turned it over to the UN through music. Some of the children that I disarmed, I brought them to do a case study with them. That with lots of love, these children will not go back to fight.
Peace negotiations finally led to a ceasefire in 1996. Elections were held the following year. Philip Wesser was one of the few journalists who covered the Liberians going to the polls. He had been part of a group of reporters that had started up the Inquirer after all Liberian media houses had shut down due to the conflict.
Many persons were not too sure that Manaseli would return to Liberia for security reasons, because she and Taylor couldn't see eye to eye with our local heads. But she braved the storm, and she came to Monrovia. And for that reason, she was referred to as the Iron Lady. This headline is the biggest headline this newspaper ever carried. And the government was not too happy while the kind of big headline was given. But we did it because the bravery to come at the time of President Taylor.
She had been a member of the Liberian Action Party, but joined the Unity Party since it did not have a candidate. This way, she could run for presidency.
It was predicted that Taylor was going to win the elections. He had the NPP, and Manaseli would come second. And true to that prediction, the result came that way.
We are ready and we are prepared.
But peace did not last for long. The country came under attack by a Guinea-based Liberian rebel group in 1999. After the conflict had raged for 4 years, women once again refused to be silenced. More than 1,000 demonstrated on Monrovia's fish market field, going on a hunger and sex strike, and prayed. They were there for 10 months.
We were lying down under the rain, under the sun, on the sea, praying for peace to restore in this country.
The women convinced Charles Taylor and rebel leaders to meet in Ghana to negotiate peace. They staged a sit-in outside the presidential palace in Accra, where talks were held. Ellen was at the meeting, and Kumba Thompson, a young activist at the time, was looking on.
She was the only woman, political person, in that discussion. And I couldn't constantly help myself but keep looking at her and say, wow, what does it mean to be sitting around with all males? And I can tell you, there were many, many, many statements about her. As young as we were, oh, she's a man. She's not a woman. Oh, you know, they gave you all kinds of names. But she was there.
During the talks, a peace agreement was signed. Charles Taylor went into exile in Nigeria and was later convicted of war crimes by the International Criminal Court. A temporary government was appointed, taking Liberia into its first post-war election 2 years later. Ellen revealed she would be running for the presidency again.
She was breaking it to the family and saying that she decided to take this bold step. And of course, there were mixed views. There were some of us who felt that you're doing very well. You're a high-profile person already. You work with the UN. You're getting a good salary. Why take this risk? But even there, she said, that is my goal, and I'm going to do it. If I lose my life, I lose it. My goal is to become president of Liberia. And she was very focused and steadfast in her belief that she would become president and she would make a difference in Liberia. And this is what she's done.
Many of the women who had found a political voice during the war threw their energy into Ellen's cause. The spirit and strength of women activists helped to lay the foundation for a female leader.
She's prepared. She's prepared, not only academically, but she can stand up in a terrain, so-called of men, and be tough enough and speak the political language that none of us were ever prepared to speak. So she can do that. And she's competent. And she will have compassion. And she will not lead. She will not be a tyrannic leader. She will not take us back to war because she's a mother. She will not want her children and her grandchildren to hunger, to prostitute, to not go to school. And I think that was the solidarity. And that's what we believe. That's what made the political change, the history of Liberia, to have her as president.
She was not elected because she's a female. No, it wasn't for that factor. It was not for that factor. It was not even a slogan during the election. Say, oh, vote for a female. No. It wasn't like that. People were looking for someone who would deliver, who could move the country.
Let us love our country. This is fundamental to progress. Join us in nation building. Join us in the processes of change. We have come a long way. We have survived the worst. There's no turning back. Make a small sacrifice for the good of ourselves and our country.
I can't say I ever wanted to be a politician. What I wanted to do was to be a good leader. A leader motivates people, inspires them, and get them to do things. A politician just talks.
Liberia has a population of around 3.5 million. Almost 60% are below the age of 35. The challenges here are many and diverse. The country has high rates of poverty, unemployment, and corruption. With Ellen Johnson Sirleaf's election, came a new era for women and children, increased access to education and freedom of speech.
Women are now speaking out. Women are playing more of a partnership role with men than, oh, behind every successful man is a good woman. It's now beside every successful man is a great woman.
The Sirleaf Market Women's Fund gives traders business management and literacy training. But how do they feel about getting ahead in politics?
Women, oh, women! Women! Women, oh, women! Women! You ever think you can be president of the country?
Yes. I don't think anything will stop me because I know very well that I'm going forward and I'll continue to go forward.
So you're not scared of politics again? No. You got no it. I know politics.
I want to be a president when I grow up to help my family.
You want to be a president when you grow up? How old are you? What will you do when you be president now?
I will help the people.
Do you think a woman can be president?
Yes.
Do you think she can be president?
Yes. I said every human being in the country can have a breast so she can become president.
I think the boldness and the realization remains just here. They're not able to translate the thinking of leadership from this sphere to the national level. The younger children, the younger people, I think, have a better opportunity. And the little girl who says, I can be president. In other words, I've seen, before I didn't see it. I'm just a child born here, but in my era, in my time, I see a woman as president. So it means that I can vie for the highest office.
Wait. Stop. Down. Right. Right.
Are you proud of having a female president in Liberia?
Yes.
And are you proud of having the first female president in Africa?
Yes.
All the females stand up. Let's see the female in this class. So we'll count you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Sit down. All the males stand up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Still, we have more male than female. Female, you can become a president one day too. You know that? Yes, once you learn your math and you learn your science, you learn to be responsible, you learn to be dutiful, you learn to have a character of integrity. And male can become president, but we want more female in classes and more female as leaders of our country. The president instituted a program for free and compulsory education for elementary school students up to 9th grade. So that is a significant improvement.
All right,
When the president is traveling around the country, everywhere there's a group of youth, she would stop and give them candies and talk to them and encourage them. What do you want to do? And so forth.
I have the right to play.
I have the right to play.
I have the right to my choice.
I have the right to my choice. I have the right to education. I have the right to be protected.
There's nothing more you can do than to bring up a child in such a way that not only are they exposed to learning in the schools, but that their physical development is all part of their growing up. Give thanks to God for all his blessings.
Many blessings.
To enable us today to be able to be in Burma, to be able to do this. So I've just recognized the blessings of God, and I know that's what you want me to do.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. The dedication of this playground is a strong testament of the government's continuous commitment to the advancement of children's well-being in Liberia.
It makes me feel that I can be like her at times when I see her, because she is a female. She stood up firm to reach that level. So with that, I get the courage, and I have the courage that I can be like her and even more greater than that.
It hasn't all been easy, I've had my share of failures. But I'm so glad that the success have exceeded the failures, and that's why where I am today. I was able to rise above the failures and rise above the difficulties. I hope I could send that message to to every other woman or every other person. It takes perseverance and commitment and dedication and hard work and honesty, and a combination of those values can get you there.
Perhaps her most significant success has been keeping her country at peace for nearly a decade.
Peace can only be achieved in Liberia with total respect for human rights. And that's what Madam Sirleaf has brought to Liberia in terms of democracy. Every day somebody is saying something about Madam Sirleaf. But is Madam Sirleaf reacting to what they say? No.
Her leadership has not escaped controversy altogether. The president has come under fire for promoting 3 of her 4 sons into high positions. She has also been criticized for not doing enough to drive down poverty. It affects around 70% of the population.
Even though the economy is now moving and operations from the investment we have made is starting, but not moving fast enough to absorb all the many young people who don't have skills, who've not had an education. And so our challenge is, how do we give them the skills through technical and vocational education? How do we prepare them so that they too can have their dignity back, so they don't have to beg or they don't have to steal, they can earn it. That's the biggest challenge right now.
The expectation are still high. People see her as someone to move them from where they are to somewhere. And one of the difficulties is to deal with expectation.
It's not about expectation, it's about reality. The reality is that where we came from, where we are today, Madam Sirleaf has done well.
We have not heard about attempted coup. We have not heard about the president being assassinated, God forbid. We have not heard that you have people coming to invade the city like before.
In 2011, she received a rare honor along with 2 other women. Ellen won the Nobel Peace Prize for advocating women's rights and participation in peace building. She was re-elected as president a month later. A year after Ellen's re-election, Joyce Banda rose to the presidency in Malawi.
I believe that of the 50 odd countries in Africa, in the next 10 years, you will see more female presidents coming up.
Whether there's someone to fit her shoes, I don't know. I don't know. I'm real. You see, I'm a realist. I don't know.
It's very difficult when one gets accustomed to one leader and you feel that leader's doing well. You think there can be nobody else, but there's always somebody else who can step up to the plate, somebody else who can take over and carry on. One of our challenges as Liberians is to find that person, to identify the person who can make sure there's continuity in all the effort we have made and make sure that Liberia moves on to an even higher plane than where I'll leave it.
I hope that we'll all tap on the legacy of a great woman.